Today, we push up the standards on a push-pull autocoach. Just like the B-set from last season, the Airfix / Hornby Autocoach is a coach that has been seen on most model railways and train sets over the years. Combine that with the equally iconic Hornby / Airfix GWR 1400 class, and we have a reasonably accurate model of another small branch line train. But alas, this is an old model and is lacking by today's standards, even if somehow Hornby thinks it deserves the mind-bogglingly outrageous price of £39.99. This example that I'm using, I picked up for a fiver a few years ago, and had plans for another project with it, hence all the Sharpie. But now it's time. Time to give it a good old upgrade. Before we jump in though, click those like and subscribe buttons, because those things make cute little babies happy. And by cute little babies, I mean me. Right, this isn't a cheap project again, I'm sorry. You can have my eternal apologies for that. In fact, I'll tell you right now that it'll cost £50, which is roughly the RIP of a new one, so you know, it kind of levels out. But as I say, you can easily pick these coaches up for a whole lot less than that on eBay, Facebook and exhibitions. In fact, I wouldn't pay more than a tenner for this coach. However, that aside, the shopping list. This will be in the description again. Firstly, the Autocoach detailing kit from Dark Castings, Shawplan Glazing for the Autocoach, self-adhesive name boards from Precision Labels, a Keen Systems closed coupling unit, parts for interior lighting, this is all in the previous video, people from eBay, transfers from the HMRS sheet and Fox Transfers, and varying paints. Before we get started, I would recommend reading through the Dark Castings instruction manual at least once, ideally twice, just to get you familiar with what you're going to be doing, as there is a lot to do, but it is fairly well described in the instructions. So, to get started, we need to take apart the coach. This is done by prising off the roof, then undoing the screws and sides, and then just pulling the body off of the chassis. The windows were a bit of a challenge, as they took a little bit of force to get out. However, as they're going straight into the bin, there's no harm in damaging them. So the first task is to remove everything that needs to be replaced. All of this is covered in the Dark Castings instruction manual, so I won't be going too heavily into this, as there's no point, as it's fairly well laid out in the manual. However, I will say, when you're removing the steps, don't remove the top step off of the sole bar like I did, as that needs to stay put. Also, because I'm a sucker for punishment, I removed the old underframe bracing, partly because it was broken, and also because I just prefer everything to be new. Before we really get started installing the Dark Castings kit, I installed one of the Keen Systems couplings at the locomotive end of the coach. This will require a little bit of plasticard scratch building to connect to the locomotive, however that will be covered later on in the video, but the actual delta plate needs to be installed now. So as I say, the instructions are comprehensive, and whilst this may look like it was quite quick, it did take me quite a while to fully install the kit, and by fully install, I mean most of the locomotive end parts were left off, as there simply wasn't room for them and the Keen Systems coupler. I also left a gap at both ends with all the rodding, so that if needs be, the bogies can be removed in the future. Now I started painting, I know already. So the underframe and bogies were given a spray of black. The interior of the roof was also sprayed black, so that when the lighting is installed, less light will leak through the plastic. I decided to paint the GWR cream on with a paintbrush, for no other reason than I fancied it this time. Weird reason, I know. Once that was dry, it was just masked off and then the brown painted on. The roof also got some treatment, with the white going on, and then the brown around the edges once that had dried. Once the body had dried, the maskings were removed and any paint leakage was tidied up. And then the red for the drop lights was painted on. This may look simple, but I hated it by the end of it. I was ready for that to be done. And then once that had dried, it was time for the transfers to go on. With a single gold band going round where the brown and cream met up, and then from the Fox's transfer sheet, the GWR roundel and luggage transfers were applied. Then it came to the numbers. As with all models I customise, I usually aim to create a variant that is preserved at Didcot Railway Centre, and this is no different. This is going to become Autocoach number 190. So the numbering was installed where highlighted and on the front. And then this all got a coat of varnish to seal it all in. Next I worked on the interior. So I painted the floor, seats and woodworking all in appropriate colours, and then some people were installed as well and stuck into position. The driver and cab controls, however, were held to one side just for the time being. With all the people in and dried, it was time for the flush glazing. Unlike the Southeast Finecast flush glazing, these are a bit more time consuming to install, and I must confess I was a little bit short on time making this video, so I've only done a couple of the windows for this actual video. I'll come back to the rest at another time. These all required a bit of filing to get a good fit, and then using some glue and glaze, I glued these into place. For the top lights above the large windows, I opted for the slightly easier method of just using some of the glue and glaze just to create the flush glazing that way. And now that all the windows are in place, the driver and cab controls were installed. Something I haven't really spoken too much was the lighting in the coach. There is a whole method to it which I've been getting on with in the background of this, but as I say, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, as I have a whole other video which covers exactly how to do this, and you can see this in the top right. Anyway, this is the time that the lighting is installed, with the wiring running down the inside of the frames alongside the weight. Once that is in, I can start putting it all back together. The wheels, the bogies, the frames, the body and the roof. The roof will now need to be glued into position, as previously it clipped into position onto the old glazing units. However, now they're gone, I had to improvise. And also, when I was putting it all back together, I found that I needed to create a small washer to go in between the chassis and the bogie at the locomotive end, as the wheels were catching on the Keen Systems delta plate, which made some very weird running. It was like causing one of the bogies to crab and was bouncing all over the place. So this was just made up out of a bit of plastic card with a 4mm hole drilled through it and then put into place. A couple of little bits of detail were also refitted, such as the handrails on the folding out steps. These were just the old ones that were reused. And then the Precision Labels destination boards were then installed, simply by using a knife to cut them out and then stick the self-adhesive sheet on. The last step is to create the coupling between the locomotive and the coach. I used a short section of plastic card which I drilled a small hole in, and one of the coupling pieces from the Keen Systems fret, along with a small screw and a washer. So the coupling piece was inserted into the Keen Systems coupler, and then the short section of plastic card was screwed into place. Then, using a bit of trial and error, I worked out the ideal distance for the plastic card to be at, which worked out at around 5mm between the buffers of the Autocoach and the locomotive. And then this was all glued together and we're away. That's now my auto train completely revamped. It looks rather nice in comparison to what it used to be. Yeah, thank you for watching, and be sure to check out some of my other videos and click that beautiful subscribe button.